Listen up, Texans. If you like canoes, kayaks, or paddle boards, then you're going to want to watch this show. Our guides and Dave have the 411 on where and how to catch more fish while paddle fishing. Check it all out here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Welcome back. You're watching the Texas Insider Fishing Report, Paddle Edition. We've got quite the show for y'all today, filled with all of your regular reports, as well as some insight into the world of watercrafts with a paddle. Right, Rick?
Absolutely. You know, the cool part about this, Brie, is that this show really allows the guys to get some access and some really close information on how they can launch closer to the fish that they want to catch.
It's accessible to everyone. We also have a few special guests with us today. Chef Taylor Sanders, who will be cooking up something yummy for us, and angler Colin Bukowski, also pro staff kayaker, who will be joining Dave here at the workbench. Dave, you have company today.
Yes, I do. Colin's making all my money today.
So we're going to talk about getting out in the surf today.
Yeah.
Not flipping.
Not flipping. What not to do. It's always good.
We should have a video of me
good
somewhere.
Things to
We got the young kids in here.
We do.
Speaking
Next gen right here. All right, let's get this paddle sesh started in the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region with Matt Losher, where the fish are ripe for the pickings on Sam Rayburn and Toledo Bend. Go for it, Matt.
All right, Brie. So kicking it off with the paddle theme this week, I'm excited to talk about it because paddle fishing has really grown in popularity among anglers here in the Middle Fresh region over the past, let's say, 5 to 10 years. And it's just such a great way to get out fishing without the stress or the financial burden of owning a power boat. And, you don't even have to buy the kayak. In fact, here at Living the Dream Guide Service, we have kayaks for rent. So if you want to try it, just give us a call. If you're in the Toledo Bend area and want to try one out, we can fix you up. It's definitely worth doing. Because here in the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region, we have a lot of great opportunities for paddle fishermen to take advantage of. Our lakes and rivers are just so easily accessible by truck that you can usually drop a kayak in or a paddleboard or whatever you have in whatever area of the lake or river that you would like to fish and not have to paddle a really long way to get to good fishing. I do advise that the paddle fishermen here in this region be very mindful of the weather, though, especially if you're on one of our larger reservoirs, because they can be very rough and kind of unforgiving in some of these bad thunderstorms that we get. But all in all, I love the idea of paddle fishing here because it's just so much less intrusive than operating the power boat. You can be a lot more stealthy when chasing fish, especially in shallow water situations, and you can potentially catch them better than those of us in boats. So it's all good. I like doing it. Getting into my weekly report, I'm going to start off on the bottom end of my region at Lake Buchanan. Got a report from Mr. Jared Poole down there, and he says that the largemouth bass have been cooperating this week. He's got a topwater bite going. It sounds like fun. He said he's found a good pattern catching fish on rocky points with a spook, and then also some on a soft plastic jerkbait rigged weightless. So a lot of fun catching them that way for sure. Then over at Sam Rayburn, I'm getting reports of a tougher bite for the first time in a while. Some of the guys are struggling over there to get bit, but they are still catching some fish. They're catching a few shallow, and they're catching some fish offshore as well, but size has just been tough to come by. They're catching a lot of 9 to 11 pound tournament limits. So been a bit of a struggle at Rayburn this week compared to what it has been. Here on Toledo Bend, the fishing has been okay this week, kind of hit or miss, some days better than others. But the water level has now stabilized from the hurricane, so that's good. There's still a lot of water coming down the river, but the dam operators are letting enough through to keep it from rising anymore. So that usually makes for a good bite when things kind of stabilize. The fish aren't so scattered now. There's been some really high numbers catches lately, but similar to Rayburn, big fish are just kind of tough to come by. Small worms like the bass assassin little tapper, and then crankbaits in about 5 to 15 feet have been the deadly deal lately. Now switching over to crappie, they've been cooperating a little bit better than the bass this week. We're still catching them around the timber, and things are starting to change a little. We're beginning to find them in some shallower areas. So the shallower areas are becoming more productive this week. We're catching them anywhere from 10 foot all the way out to 25 foot around that timber on minnows and on jigs as well. And I've got a photo here for you of Greg and his son Jacob with a nice limit of crappie they caught with me recently. Had a real good day with those guys. A lot of fun with Jacob reeling those fish in all day long. I think he caught most of them.
Tell us about the bow fishing there, bub.
All right, so rounding out, I got another report this week from Jared Poole on Lake LBJ. And his crew, he said they've done really good on the bow fishing this week. They're really getting set up well, and they're having a good time, enjoying that cool nighttime period and shooting some bigger fish this week. And I've got another photo here for you of a couple guys holding some big carp they're shooting. So they got some big targets for you to shoot at. You need to go check that out.
All right, thanks for the report, Matt. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Middle Fresh region. Matt says the topwater bite is good on Lake Buchanan at Toledo Bend, and the Texas rigged worms are the ticket. And the crappie are also biting well in 10 to 20 feet around that timber.
All right, Rick, now we're paddling into the GARMIN Lower Coast region where Captain Chad Kinney has all of your kayak tips, secrets, and more. What's going on down there, Chad?
Tell you what, I'm just looking at the weekend forecast, and it's about the best I've seen coming up. I'm seeing like less than 2 foot seas offshore. Bay patterns can be great. So I'm actually personally heading out to the floater rigs Perdido and Hoover, 150 miles out. So I'm looking forward to the weekend. But paddling, like we're talking about here, we got some of the best stuff down here. So we got the longest beachfront down here from Corpus all the way down to Mansfield. They'll drive down working that and everything else. So the kayaking, it's been increasingly more popular, especially this time of year with the lighter winds. And it's a great way to paddle yourself to a good fishing destination. The lower coast areas, like they got plenty of launch areas to reach the fishing grounds. The best way to do this, I would just ask your local marina. If you're up in Corpus, if you're down here around Mansfield, call us. There's a boat ramp right here and a launch right there you can go to. But the main thing is also make a good float plan or a good weather plan. Make sure you take a look at the weather forecast with all the apps and stuff we got now. It's really easy to do that. Check your wind directions. And then, you can check your radar, when you're out there too, and see if there's anything coming up. For instance, like talking about in Port Mansfield here, there's a launch on our south side. It's designated basically for airboats and for kayaks. It has a parking lot right there. And it's so easy. You can actually just launch right there, and you can paddle yourself right out to the long bar, which is really good fishing. You can fish for reds and trout all over that area. From there, if you have time, if you got the energy and everything else, you can paddle your way out to the East Cut, which is probably another 2-3 miles. Work the edges of that and the guts. It's a very effective way to be really stealthy, while fishing. Not to mention, it's kind of relaxing to have the peaceful out there. Take a box of assorted lures with you, of course. Make sure you have plenty of terminal tackle and everything else, some topwater mirror lures, and some soft plastic saltwater assassins in there. And over the last few years, also heading offshore as much as I do out there, been seeing a lot of kayaks guys coming down from Corpus area and stuff, and they'll be fishing the beachfront, paddling out. They'll get to chasing the bait balls for kingfish and tarpon and throwing plugs and dropping down, and even some of the shallower snapper spots we got, they'll be targeting that. So it's a really great way to access this, especially this time of year through October before these northerns hit. So moving to inshore, trout fishing's really been picked up here at Port Mansfield. Good time of year with calmer winds to utilize your power poles. You're not going to be drifting much or anything like that right now. So get your shallow sport boat and go for a wade in knee-deep to waist-deep water. Saucers have been producing, and also around the pipeline. Then you throw in what we always throw pretty much down here in the bait system, about 1/8 ounce jig head with a saltwater assassin sea shad. Works really good. Work those sand pockets that are surrounded by the grass. These fish, what they're going to do is they're laying up in that grass, and they're going to ambush any bait that goes through those sand pockets. So when you work that lure through that area and the sand pockets hit the edges, hit the middle, and more likely that's where you can pick up your bites. Topwater mirror lure is also working really well, like Top Dog Junior, She Dog, working great. And work these while you're wading in less surface grass areas with these calmer winds. If you get the less surface grass area, then I go to them. And then work them around the potholes in the grass also. Main thing is, remember when you're wade fishing, spread your guys out, make fan casts like 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, at 12 o'clock right there. Cover a lot more water that way. And when you get some bites going, stay on the fish. Don't outwade your other partners or your buddies. Stay in a kind of a good line there. Got a picture of owner of Shallow Sport Boats here. Got a picture of Wes. He was out fishing out of Mansfield here and released a nice 25-inch trout there.
That's a nice one. Tell us about the redfish,
That's a
Chad.
good south fish. Yeah, it's a redfish, which is good this time of year, which they should, and they are. So they're showing up on the flats, which is really fun down here out of Mansfield to Arroyo City. Head out of Mansfield south. We head right to the East Cut and head south towards Green Island. Start up really shallow early. Look for wakes pushing. Look for pods of red, schools of red. With these calm conditions like this, make sure when you actually start fishing, you got to make a really wide swing. So if you're kind of like doing S-turns, looking for if you see enough fish and moving towards fishable, make a wide swing, go back up over there, get out, and make your way through there. That's going to be a lot better so you don't blow out your area where you can be fishing at. Throwing mirror lures, top water's working great. Saltwater assassin, classics, paddle tails when you're up there shallower like that. Chartreuse tail works really good, well with whatever favorite color you got there. And, these fish will start up really shallow, and then as the day goes on, they'll start dropping off because the bait's going to be falling off into that waist-deep water area. So start up really early and then move your way out deeper. And then heading to offshore, like I said, September is my favorite month, and into October here before the big fronts start coming in. So it's a great time to head out deep, go for Dorado and blackfin tuna. Like I said, I mentioned I'm going to go out to the floater rig, so hopefully next week I'll be talking about yellowfin and billfish. But calmer conditions with these, head up to the deeper shrimp boats, 150 foot and deeper. Troll some smaller islander lures. Try some naked, which means there's no bait attached, nothing, just the lure itself. And then some rigged up with a ballyhoo. Pull 3 lines. What you can do in this, and you're allowed to make tighter turns around the shrimp boats. If you're in the open water, then go ahead and put your 5 lines or 7 lines, whatever you want to rig out there. Definitely put your islanders and rig some with ballyhoo, and you'll cover more ground. But basically, you got to really look for some weed lines, any structure. So any rips you find, weed lines, stay on them. The Dorado stay up on top most of the day. The tuna usually, mid-morning or so, they start dropping down deeper. So if you're working most of the day, the best bet is after you finish with the boats, go out to the open water and find hopefully some weed lines forming and stay on them. Like I said, you start with the cleaner side of the weed line, work on that, and pull those baits about 7.5 to 8 knots. So got a picture here of a Dorado caught off the saltwater out of South Padre Island there.
All right, looking good, Chad. Thank you so much. We're going to take a look at the shallow sport boats hotspots from the lower coast region. He says inshore, the bay fishing's good on trout and redfish out of Port Mansfield using soft plastics such as saltwater assassins from the flats to the scattered bottom in 4 to 5 feet of water. And then offshore has been picking up. The weather looks good, so head out deep to the shrimp boats for Dorado and blackfin tuna action. What do you think?
Sion. All right, the Alvy Reels Middle Coast region is on our 2-fish list next, but first we're headed to the workbench for some Paddle 101 with Dave Farrell on what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Colin's going to tell you how to keep your butt in the seat.
That's right. That's right. You don't want to start your day on a bad note.
That's right.
That's right. We'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Casa Vieja Lodge. 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala. GARMIN. Join the club. Sportsman's Adventures. Fishing for adventure. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
Reliability. Yamaha is known for it. And it's something boaters value, because these days, few things are built to last. When we find something that is, we hold on to friendships, traditions, outboards, because every second on the water is sacred. If you count on having this time, you need an outboard you can count on to power it. That's why boaters choose Yamaha for the long run, for life, because reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore. Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
For the Bay and beyond, team up with the best and rule the Bay in a Skeeter. Proven with 19 consecutive NMMA Consumer Satisfaction Awards. And right now through October 19th, you can fall into savings with rebates of up to $2,500. Versatility, control, performance, and design. Visit your local dealer or online at SkeeterBoats.com and fall into savings through October 19th. Skeeter. It's more than a boat. It's a lifestyle.
Have you ever felt your heart pounding while feeling the power of a tarpon in the Florida Keys? Or experienced the changing colors of a mahi as you bring it on board? Whether it's in the Bahamas, the Florida Keys, Guatemala, or the Florida Everglades, Murphy's Law Sports Fishing has the ability to guide you to the fish of a lifetime. To book your trip today, call 305-246-0673 or go to murphyslawsportfishing.com.
Well, we're here at the Rigs and Techniques, and we got Colin Bukowski in, who's works for these nice, what is this, Shearwater?
This is
one of your fellas?
This is the Vibe Shearwater 125, so their new kayak.
Very nice, very nice. And when you're going out to fish in Texas, what we're trying to mainly target is tarpon, probably some king mackerels in the surf. And you said there was even a couple of rigs that you can get to.
Yeah, down in like the Corpus Christi area, there's a few rigs that are, if you have a kayak that you can get out on a calm day, like one that preferably if you have pedals, there's a few rigs that are probably anywhere between 5 and 7 miles offshore that you can access to get to those kingfish or amberjack and stuff like that.
Get a workout, really get some work done.
Yeah.
All right, but before you get to the rig 6 miles out, you got to get through the surf sometimes.
Yeah. Yep.
So how are you going to negotiate the surf with a kayak and try to keep all your gear in it?
So a lot of the mistakes that people make when they're going offshore and kayaking is everybody's in a rush. So, you want to get out to the fishing grounds. You want to be the first to catch a fish, but especially when the surf is rough or choppy, it doesn't even have to be rough out. It could be calm, barely any breeze, but there can still be a chop on the beach because of the sandbars and everything.
Right.
Excuse me.
And the tide ripping.
The tide ripping and the current. So what you want to do is you want to just sit still on the beach. You want to analyze the pattern that the currents are doing, the intervals of the waves, how many breakers are coming, and you don't want to go right to it.
Look before you leave.
Look before you leave.
I got you.
Right.
Especially with all the rip currents and stuff that can happen between bars. If you're trying to get out when it's coming in real hard or something, you're going to be working out.
A spot in one location can look completely different than a spot 30 yards down the beach. So you want to try and find a sweet spot where you have an opening, you have a good interval, and give yourself time to get out there. And the next step to that is once you're ready to go, make sure all your gear is strapped in. Because chances are, if it's choppy, you're not going to want to go searching for everything if you do flip.
Right.
And even if you don't flip, sometimes those breakers will hit you over the bow of your kayak,
and they'll still wash stuff out.
Any loose stuff will go overboard. So you want to avoid that happening at all costs.
Make sure everything's tacked down real hard.
Yeah. And once you got the pattern down, once you're comfortable with the interval of the waves coming and you're ready to go, you want to make that process as fast as possible. Hop in your kayak, make sure the bow is pointing into the waves. That way, if you do have a breaker coming, you can use that forward momentum to your advantage and just crash that bow right into it.
You got to use all the power you got.
The worst that's going to happen is you're just going to get a little wet. Right. And you want to have a kayak that's got plenty of scupper holes. It's going to drain all that water right away.
You never want to be sideways, do you, Colin?
You don't want to be sideways, especially in that situation.
You don't want to get sideways.
So,
as hard as it is getting out, how about coming back?
Yeah, the end game is definitely the more tactical part of it.
Plus, you've been out there fishing all day. You're a little tired.
Yep.
It's hard to see what's going on when you're coming from in to out.
So there's a few different methods that I like to practice when it comes to coming in, and that's if you have a 5-gallon bucket that you're using for live bait. If you're not using a live well like this, and you would use a drift chute if you don't have a 5-gallon bucket if you're using that. But either one of those items, a drift chute or a 5-gallon bucket, can be your best friend when it comes to paddling in.
And use it as a brake to keep you from pitch poling.
Yeah, one method is you can have a rope already pre-tied to the back of your kayak and toss that bucket or drift sock over. That way, if you won't get blindsided by a wave. If it comes up from behind, it's gonna, your bow's gonna want to dip, but that friction is gonna pull your kayak back down.
Right.
And it's just like going out. The worst that's gonna happen is you're just gonna get wet, from a wave hitting you from behind.
And then the hard part, if you don't have a bucket, you got to do what?
Oh yeah, well this is a method that I've done a couple of times.
Quickly.
You got to turn your kayak around and paddle backwards. So that way you can see the waves coming, and if you have a wave that's going to break, you can paddle into it as fast as you can. And you just keep doing that. It's a slower process, but it's still really effective, still safe, and you're not going to risk flipping and losing all your gear.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're brave enough to do it. Thanks for helping us out, man.
You got it.
Back to you guys over there.
Sea anchoring the booty. That's what we're talking about, putting it out the back.
Okay. The Albie Reels Middle Coast region is prime and perfect for a day of catching from a kayak. So let's hear from Captain Bink Grimes on how it's being done. Yak away, Bink.
All right, those kayakers, they've shown up around Matagorda here lately. They're mobile. If they don't like what they see, they load up in their truck and they drive somewhere else. And that's kind of the beauty of it, being mobile with a kayak. I watched a couple of guys working the second sandbar this week. They were able to stay on the fish and cast parallel on both sides of the bar. Most of those yackers, they like to take shark baits past the outer bars and then come back and fish from the beach. Others, they're chasing tarpon when they pull close to the sand. A lot of times our tarpon will come in pretty tight to the beach, following those pogies, and those kayakers get after them. These guys love to get to the back lake areas as well, sight casting the rooting redfish and finding some of the largest flounder we have here in Texas that are buried up in those muddy bottoms that are almost impossible to get to by foot. Some of those back lake marshes that are just that you'll sink to your knees or to your waist, and that all that silt, man, you can get to them with kayak and really catch some fish. We'll go to trout now. I'll tell you, our Port O'Connor guys have picked up catching trout on top waters. Good stringers that come from around the Cedars and City Slickers, Super Spooks and She Dogs and Top Dogs. The nearby jetty area has been great for trout on live shrimp and live mullet. Some waded the backside of the jetty, and some have worked the surf side of Freeport jetties on mirror lures and live shrimp. High tides and Rockport have put more trout on the shorelines. We got a lot of storms popping up in the Gulf right now. That low pressure is pumping up the tides. It's great for that back lake game. Spots like Super Flats, Island Fight, they're holding good trout over sand and grass. Limits of trout in East Matagorda Bay while drifting deep shell on Bass Assassins. Mid-coast reefs have been good for heavy trout on top waters. And soft plastics like those Mirror Lure Little Johns and the Bass Assassins Sea Shad in Morning Glory, Chicken on a Chain, or fried chicken. And then guide Ray Sexton said the West Matagorda Bay has been good for trout over shell. He's found good numbers of trout when we have a north wind on that Palacios shoreline. It's protected from a north wind around Tres Palacios Bay and also on the backside of Oyster Lake. It seems like there's a lot of Gulf trout as well in our bays. We've been catching them this week. Man, when we get those bull tides, those big old Gulf trout, 16, 17-inch, they're just a bonus, and it's a really, really nice white meat. Spots like Boiler Bow, Don's Pipeline, and Alice are holding lots of Gulf trout. We're catching them on live shrimp, but you're also catching them on soft plastics, the Bass Assassins and the Little Johns again. Redfish, man, our redfish guys, I talk to them at the dock every day that just specialize in redfish. This is their time of the year. Our tides are pulling up, and that south shoreline, any point of shell is holding fish right now. Bull redfish are good from Surfside to Port O'Connor Jetty. Surfside, Freeport, and Matagorda jetties are holding lots of redfish on blue crabs, mullet, and table shrimp. Then the Port O'Connor jetty is full of big reds around Bird Island. Some are fishing inside the jetty. Some are out there in about 35 foot of water around Bird Island. It's always this time of year, our slot reds are good around Shell Island, Twin Island, Cutoff Flats, and Zipper and Bio and Matagorda. Mud Lakes and Crab Lakes are good spots as well. I caught them there this week, matter of fact. Then the Port Ranges jetty's been good for catches of reds. I tell you, high tides have made the flats around there, around Pelican Island, and the East Flats have been really, really good right there around Port Ranges. There's a photo there, Troy Williford. He found that Matagorda. He's working sloughs around Cutoff Flats. He had already lost a few. We call it Cutoff Flats for a reason, because it's hard to get those big redfish back because they'll take you right to the shell and cut you off. Offshore, I tell you, our tarpon is still the game out there. It's tough to get out there right now. It's just been bumpy. But, man, they're there. They're drifting, menhaden and finger mullet. And they're finding fish on when you can get out there on those calmer days. We got a north wind forecasted for this weekend, and so it ought to really lay that Gulf down. Large schools have been around the Port O'Connor jetty as well. 28 to 35 foot of water. Most of them are rolling fish, and they're offering baits to them like the coon pops, and then big old pogies are out there, and that's kind of what those poons are shadowing. They're throwing jigs as well on circle hooks. Many call it the coon pop, as you know, and those cool fronts are, like I said, it's September. We start getting them a little bit of bird action out there. Sometimes those fish will be under birds, and it's just a good time. And everything's kind of starting to show the fall pattern here along the middle coast. We had some birds working this week, and it's just kind of cooling down a little bit. The water temperature's at about 82, down from 89 a week ago, so it's starting to shape up.
All right, thank you so much, Bink. Great report from the Alvey Middle Coast region. We're going to take a look at the hot spots. He says trout are good while wading flats near Port O'Connor jetty on top waters and Bass Assassins. The redfish are good in the back lakes. from Freeport to Rockport on small topwaters, and then those tarpon continue to show up along the beaches, Brie.
All right, when we come back, we're getting an earful of the good stuff from the lower fresh and upper fresh regions, and Chef Taylor Sanders will be cooking up a mouthful of good stuff when we return. It smells so good.
Yep.
But remember to keep up with our crew, head to our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube page, Captain Rick Murphy. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Alvy Reels, a better way to fish. And Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO offshore.
Why is Casa Vieja Lodge on everyone's bucket list?
Left teaser. Left flat as well. 2 fish. They're everywhere. Right flat teaser as well. Left flat, right flat teaser.
Come to Casa Vieja Lodge and check it off your list.
Finding a shoreline is easy. Finding a sure thing is not. For over 20 years, anglers from Kitty Hawk to California and every shore in between have come to know one thing: that nothing says no to fish bites. So just stop with the fishing and get busy with the catching. Ask for Fish Bites or Fish Bites Fight Club lures or visit fishbites.com.
Well, as you can see, we have our special guest, Chef Taylor. You know, Taylor, you've been cooking for us for quite a few years. I mean, when you were, how old were you the first time?
Back in 2017, so I think probably 14 or 15. Oh. But I'm glad to be back.
I'm glad you're here. So what are you making for us tonight?
So today we're cooking up some tuna nachos. Don't get alarmed. We are cooking, we're using wonton wrappers as our tortilla shells. So we have these and you just fry them up and get them all nice and crispy. So we're gonna lay these out. I'm gonna give you these to lay all out.
Is there anything specific you want me to lay them in any specific place or way?
However your heart desires.
Oh, okay, goody. Good.
So over here we just have a high grade of sashimi tuna that we just have marinating in some soy sauce and some seasonings. And as soon as he's done with that, we're gonna sprinkle the tuna right on top of this.
Is that enough?
Yeah, that's perfect. Right. So we're gonna add all this nice tuna that's been soaking up in this soy sauce. It's gonna be absolutely delicious.
It smells so good.
And then we have a fresh pineapple salsa with some avocado, some pineapple, and I'm gonna switch spots with you.
Okay.
We're gonna sprinkle this right on top of it. And then we have a spicy mayo that's gonna go on top. That's just gonna top it off with a little bit of seaweed salad. So I'm gonna give you this to put on top, and I'm gonna drizzle this right on top.
So I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit at a time?
And we're just gonna put a little bit right on top.
Oh man. So, Taylor, let me ask you this while we're doing this. What are the big mistakes we make when we're cooking fish dishes?
Definitely undercooking your fish. You have to know what the point to stop or to keep going. You want that fish to be nice and flaky, no brown. You want it to be nice and golden brown on top, depending on what type of fish you're cooking. But the main thing is when you're eating raw tuna is you want a nice high grade of sashimi tuna so you don't get any sickness or anything like that.
What's the ingredients in the mayo?
So it's just any type of mayo that you like. I know some people are picky about their mayonnaise. A little bit of sriracha, a little bit of lime juice, and then you just stir that all together, and it is so simple and so easy. And this is really good to make for like a party, a tailgate, something different that people aren't used to that you could really wow people with.
And the best part is that, you know, you catch a lot of tunas in Texas, so it can,
definitely.
From the hook to the cook.
There
So
you go.
if guys want to know about the recipe or they want to know more about you, where do they go?
You guys can look me up on Instagram and Facebook at Chef Taylor Sanders, and the recipes will be posted on there. So if you guys want to make tuna nachos yourself, don't hesitate to hop right over.
You know what, Brie? Our girl is growing up, and I'm going to try this.
Oh, there you go. You got it. Crunchy crunch. There we go.
Oh, so
good job, Taylor.
So
it's good to have you back. All right. I don't know if you can smell the good cooking coming out of the studio, Matt, but go ahead and tell us what's going on in the Lower Fresh region on Lake Travis, Buchanan, Decker, Choke Canyon, Lake Falcon, and O.H. Abbey. Go for it.
All right. Let's start this off talking about a little bit of the paddling you can do these days. Yeah, there's tons of options of water for your kayak. What you need to do is check out all of the state parks on the rivers and the lakes. That'll give you access to available water. And you just want to keep it simple. Throw a small crankbait or spinnerbait in the shallow cover, and you'll catch plenty of fish. With that kayak, it's really a great way to get into a lot of unpressured water where the fish are fairly easy to catch. So don't let the lack of a real boat slow you down. Get your kayak, get out and paddle, and get after them. We're going to move on into the largemouth bass now. Brian Cotter in the Austin area with Texas Hogs sent me a report from several lakes there. Lake Travis is getting better. More fish seem to be on the bite on the topwater. Early in the mornings, we've had some storms lately. It's cooled it down a little bit. The shad and the bait fish are really starting to move into coves, so you throw those topwaters in the back of the coves and on any rock channel swings. You can also throw a small swim bait or drag a worm or a jig around the mouth of the coves on the main lake and secondary points to add some fish to your creel also. Lake Buchanan, it's fishing pretty good out on the main lake and secondary points on top waters early to mid-morning. After that, you want to throw a crankbait around the points and ledges for the rest of the day, and that's a great way to finish up catching fish all during the day. Lake Decker, still fishing good for schooling bass. They aren't busting the surface as much as they have been, but you can still see them boiling and flashing right on the, right under the surface. Get you a small swim bait, let it fall down 6 or 8 seconds through them on a slack line, and it'll load up, and that's the best way to catch those fish right now. Mike Bates sent me a report from Choke Canyon. The early bite is super good right now, but it's over by about 7:45. Throw a topwater or spinnerbait or swim bait along the outside edge of the hydrilla for those bites, and you want to cover as much water as possible, and you'll keep running over some new groups that way. After that, you want to pick up a Texas rig, soft plastic on the outside of that grass, and cast it with a quarter or 3/8 weight, and just kind of drag it along real slow through that scattered grass. Great way to catch them on cloudy days when you have a bright sun. Get you a big weight, braided line, and some, a soft plastic, either a beaver style bait or just a big worm. Punch it through the hydrilla, right through the heaviest cover. That's where you're going to have a great chance to catch a giant because he gets under there from the sun. He's been catching fish up to 8 pounds. Falcon has been really good lately. The numbers have been best on rock ledges. On Texas rig, big stand-up heads, with plastic on them and a football jig. Big crankbaits have also produced some great fish for me in the last week. Crankbait deal, you need to be persistent. Stick with it. You won't get as many bites, but it can be a great big one when you do. Chase Brooks sent me a report from out at O.H. Ivy. Small bass are schooling all over the main lake. A lot of fun chasing those fish to catch numbers. Throw a walkie top water through them or a small swim bait, and you can catch 50 to 100 of them by noon sometime when you get on them. The bigger ones are in the deeper water in that 20 to 30 foot range. Throw you a big 10-inch worm or a big fluke on a Texas rig or Carolina rig, and that's your best way to catch a really big one there.
Tell us
Got
about
a pick there. One of my customers, old Jeff Schmidt, with a big old falcon fish from this week. I never get tired of seeing folks hold up big old bug-eyed bass.
All right, tell us about the crappie and the catfish quick, Matt.
Quick. All right, crappie, falcon and crappie are really biting good in the brush piles in that 15 to 20 foot range. Get you an 8-ounce jig, drop it down to just above the brush, and you can load the live well up pretty quick. I mean, limits are easy right now. That picture's just a 2-man limit of big old crappie.
All right, what about the cat?
A lot of fun, a lot of good eating.
Catfish?
Catfish. We got the numbers of cats are in the 10 to 20 foot range on the hardwood points. Bigger catfish are out on the rock ledges at night. Throw cut carp or bluegill, and you might catch you a giant.
All right, well, thank you so much, Matt. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the lower fresh region. He says Choke Canyon, the bass are biting great in the early morning. You want to throw topwater spinner baits or swim baits on the outside grass lines and have a blast. And then later throw a Texas rig on the outside edges of the hydrilla to keep catching them throughout the day. So now we found something we can do at night. We can go catfishing.
Fishing in the dark. I love it.
Catfishing.
All right, our upper fresh region guide, Johnny Geis, is ready to talk paddle to us with some good tips to boot. Tell us what we're in for this weekend, Johnny.
Hey, Rick and Bree. Well, we don't do much paddle boarding up here, but with all the many trolling motor options we've got nowadays, you really don't see any bass boats paddled by paddle anymore. But, you know, I kind of grew up in North Louisiana, and, man, we learned at an early age how to use a wooden paddle to move the boat along on farm ponds and cypress bayous. Most of the modern anglers, they probably don't even know how to sit on the bow of the aluminum boat like we used to and scull the boat along backwards real slow and catch fish. Sculling, man, that's a lost art where you use a short paddle, reach out behind you and pull the paddle through the water, make a figure 8 with the paddle and pull the boat forward. This is a very quiet and stealthy way to get close to those fishy looking cover areas. And now about the only time you see a paddle around our lakes is when a kayaker that comes by and he's using a double paddle to power the kayak through the water. But hey, last year I learned the hard way to always have a paddle on your bass boat regardless, because you can run out of battery juice on your cranking battery and your trolling motors all at the same time and have to figure out a way to get in. So you got to have that paddle. On the report tonight, first up, let's talk about the big old stripers up at Texoma. Captain Bill and Chris Carey of Striper Express sent a great report in, said Lake Texoma has been above their expectations this summer and still holding hot. The topwater fish is still going strong. The lake level is near normal. The water temps are right at the mid-80s right now. Early mornings, the stripers are surfacing all over the lake. This time of year, it's a lot of numbers. Biggest fish only run around 6 or 7 pounds, just a lot of good bites. So most fish will be small to medium size, they call them box fish. It's all fast and furious topwater action, and it only lasts about 9 or 10, so you have to get an early start. Striper Express, they'll board and depart at 6 a.m. They'll head to that first pod of surfacing fish, and it's game on. The best lure's been a 4.5-inch pencil popper type bait. On the right mornings, you can catch fish on every cast, and everyone gets into action. They're also having success on the plopper type style baits. That's where that tail section spins as you retrieve it. Really straight ends, a hard plastic lure, makes a popping sound that is irresistible to the fish, especially the big stripers. There's been an above average bait spawn on Lake Texoma. It has changed the normal approach for the summers this time of year. The striper guides are looking for pods of bait fish and patches of surfacing fish behind them. The fish are coming up on the ledges and they're running out on the flats. So when they come over that ledge and they hit that 10 to 20 foot flat depth behind it, that's when the fish will start to surface. They're chasing those bait balls, and then when they push that bait to the surface, they're striking around the boat all over. When they start schooling, it is fast and furious. The guides, they all keep binoculars handy. Once the action slows up, they glass all over the lake, find the next pod of fish blowing up, crank up, and they get into that action too. It's all over about 9 to 10 o'clock though. Can't stress enough how you got to get there early, and it winds down mid-morning. On the way back to the marina, the guide boats are reporting finding some schooling sand bass and they'll pull over and stop and let you catch a bunch of them too. Those old big Texoma white bass, they'll bite later in the mornings after the stripers go take their siesta for the day. Captain Bill says it's time to get in on that last-minute striper trip. Bring the kids, and they're giving a T-shirt, complimentary T-shirt, Striper Express for every guy that brings their kids to fish with them. Here's a great picture of a couple of nice topwater stripers caught this week, and you know that was fun on a big topwater bait.
Boy, you ain't kidding. All right, tell me about the black bass quickly.
Okay, quick. Black bass over Lake Allen Henry. Man, the fall fishing's happening right now. As the days grown a little bit shorter, the mornings got cooler. That weather forecast looks good up there, and hopefully those 100-degree temps are gone. Guide Philip Poole with Gone Fishing Guide Service, he reports that he's had a great week. Philip says the numbers are good, and they're catching some quality fish as well. There's been another shad spawn, and that's been going on for about a month now. Also, Texas Parks and Wildlife did a heavy stocking of the bluegill 2 months ago, and these weren't the baby bluegill. These adult bluegills they put in the lake, they fed it up, schooled up, and now there's fish schooling all over the lake. Philip said he's seeing a fall largemouth spawn, and you don't see many of them, but they're catching bass with bloody tails in shallow water. Shallow water fish are biting jerk baits and square bills. Schooling fish are over the deep water. You need to use a pop-art type bait and a half-ounce spoon. October and November, they're going to be some of the best fall months for fishing up at Allen Henry in years. The grass, the hydrilla, and the pepper grass, Texas Parks and Wildlife planted is spread out, and it's changed the lake. Philip Poole says they're catching about 50% blacks and 50% spots on jerk baits, running about 2 to 4 foot. Hey, thanks to Philip Poole, Gone Fishing Guide Service for a great report. Here's a good picture of some good Allen Henry schooling bass.
All right, thank you so much, Johnny. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the upper fresh region. Johnny says Lake Texoma, topwater action going strong. Look for the schooling action early in each morning as the roving schools of stripers are feeding on threadfins and gizzard shads. Then use a pencil popper type of lure for the best results. And then Lake Allen Henry, the black bass are going strong. Both black bass and the shads are in the shallows each in the morning. Start out with the topwater and then switch to a Texas rigged worm or around the shallow vegetation, throw a jerk bait or slab spoons, catching quality schooling bass.
Impressive. We're staying stealthy and making ripples in the Fish Bites Upper Coast region next. But first, we're seeing what ripples Dave is making at the workbench for new products. Making ripples or waves?
Big ripples. But anyway, this is a really cool new reel by Alvy. It's got 2-to-1 retrieve. Yeah, that's it. 2-to-1 retrieve.
You got this, Dave. 2-speed. We'll be back.
2-speed.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a MirrOlure. Diamond Fishing Products. Our reputation is on the line. And TRON. Cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
At the pinnacle of super high output, 4-stroke outboard performance, you'll find Yamaha VMAX SHO. Yamaha's game-changing SHO technology. From exhilarating V6 models to the sleek inline 4s, there's a VMAX SHO for everything from bass to bonefish. It's an extended family of 4-strokes engineered for lightweight, inspiring performance, and rock-solid reliability. Discover VMAX SHO and elevate your expectations.
The only reel with over 100 years of heritage. Alvy reels are manufactured using the most reliable components. Alvy's state-of-the-art drag and retrieve rates are perfect for any fishing challenge. So whether it's a side cast or spinning reel, Alvy makes a reel that best fits your needs. Alvy reels are manufactured to best practice standards and are in fact so robust that the Alvy also comes with up to a 10-year salt and sand warranty. For more information, go to alvyus.com.
Today's Power Pole tip is about how I really love how the charge really helps me extend my day of fishing. Now let me explain. When we're running up and down the beach chasing schools of tarpon, or maybe on a spot lock in a channel situation, we're really using a lot of voltage out of our trolling motors. Now, when I hook a fish and I simply jump down and turn that switch and start the big motor, now I immediately start replenishing my trolling motor battery voltage. That's what the charge does. I also have the ability to monitor exactly what's going on with those batteries. And in Florida, when we have 14-hour days, this could really extend your whole day of fishing. So keep in mind that whenever you're fishing and you need to recharge your trolling motor system, all you have to do is simply turn the key on, and now you have the ability to recharge your trolling motor system. If you have any questions, you can go to powerpole.com, and that's today's Power Pole tip. Well, we're here at the workbench, and Dave, you got some colorful stuff going on here.
Let's get to it. We'll start with the Starbright screen cleaner and protectant. You know, we're all using a lot of screens nowadays, putting our fingers all over everything. Everything's touch screen nowadays, so you know you need to protect your screen, and the Starbright screen cleaner and protectant works.
Use it all the time. Plus, I use it on my coasters. I get that chicken grease from Dion's.
It's made from Rain Electronics and plastic, so you spray it on, wipe it off, it takes all the fingerprints, the smudges, and everything, and it saves. It puts a UV protectant on there as well. So, Starbright.com, you can get that.
All right.
Next, we got some really cool new Alvi reels. That's the 65 GRBC, the one I was talking about. It's got 2-to-1 retrieve, which is a good 3 feet on one turn, which is going to be plenty. Even if you wanted to throw a lure in the surf now, you can do that and not have to worry about wearing yourself out. You can just real easy and move a nice big mirror lure or something through the water. And it, like I said, these things are made to hang in the water and the sand. They got a 10-year salt and sand warranty on them. You can't beat it. They're tough as nails. And this is the new Alvi 65 SY. It's a light carbon fiber reel. It's very light.
Half the weight.
Yeah, very light because it's the 1-to-1 as well. But it's got carbon fiber, all carbon fiber everywhere. Titanium spindle in the back. Carbon fiber spool. It's got that an automotive paint finish on it, so it just keeps everything nice. And again, 10-year
big yellow handles.
Yeah, again, 10-year.
Where do we find them?
Oh, alvius.com.
That's right.
Next and probably last here, we got the Taken live well. A little fella, a 15-year-old guy. Started this little company, and he's making a really cool live well. This is an 8-gallon live well, and it's got dual aerators inside of it, and he's got a little waterproof box on the back that holds both of his baby bubblers, so you can hold pilchers.
You got the bubblers on the back.
Yeah, and also he's got, on one side, he's got a little waterproof box where you can put a nice phone if you want it in there. He's got 4 rod holders on it. You can have up to 5. I think he'll put another one on there for you.
With the water in there, you can carry it with the handle.
Yep.
Plus, he does make this in a wheeled version, right?
Correct, for the Terra, it's called the Terra version, Terra Plus, and plus only that, you got a nice drain here in case you don't want to have to carry 8 gallons of water. You can let half the water out and make it lighter, move to another place, and then put your water in it. But the other one, the Terra one's got wheels on it, and you can wheel it up and down the pier. That's a little waterproof box for your phone or your wallet or whatever you want to put in there.
Yeah, whatever you want to put in there.
Yeah.
What I like, Dave, is that everything is very, very well secured.
Correct. All with stainless steel hardware as well. It's like all stainless steel screws, and it looks like 5200 that he's put on there. Nice little cup holder in the front. Again, you can't beat it for a live well for a kayak or even a small boat or running up and down the pier on a set of wheels with the Terra Nova one.
I like the fact that this is perfect for our John boats. It's perfect for your kayaks like you guys had earlier, canoes, all of those. Paddle boards, perfect.
Yep, Taken line, and you go Taken line gear, built custom by that little fella down there, 15-year-old kid.
And where do we find it?
He's doing great. Takenline.com.
Takenline.com, Brie.
Takenline.com.
It's time for you to take us to another region.
That kid's going places.
Yep.
All right, Early Bird gets the worm in the Fish Bites East region, so let's check in with Captain Carl Weston and see what to expect for our weekend ahead. Talk to us, Carl.
Hey guys, well I guess we'll open up by talking about a little bit of paddleboarding, which in our area isn't huge, but it seems like it's coming along more and more. There are a ton of areas to paddleboard from. All the jetties that we have, the beaches, so many boat ramps. There's just an endless supply of places where we can paddleboard. And it seems like I say, it's catching on more and more. I haven't done much myself, but I see it every day. So if it's your bag, just look up any of the Texas Parks and Wildlife have a bunch of ramps. Like I say, all the beaches, it's accessible everywhere. So moving into the upper coast weather, it's been really hot this week. So I hate to sound like a broken record, guys, but our tactics have remained the same over the past few weeks. The early morning bite has produced the most action. The first few hours of daylight, we have seen the bait run the shorelines and around the oyster reefs. This is the time of day you really want to be throwing live bait. Shrimp on a popping cork is really hard to beat right now. The medium-sized shad is running a close second as well. Artificial bait seems to be more productive in the late evenings. Topwater is going to be your best bet. And we've touched on recently the mirror lure swim baits in a mullet or a shad color will really get the job done, like Mr. Brian did here with this beautiful trout he caught.
Nice. All right, what else you got for us, bub?
Well, the redfish bite has remained very strong in our area as well. Even with the large amount of fresh water dumped into the bays over the past few weeks, the water temps have stayed in the upper 80s and the bait is in abundance. The two elements have kept these fish close to the shore. Moving from Sabine Lake down to West Galveston Bay, there's been a nice stringer of reds on a daily occurrence. Live bait is a surefire way to get off the water as soon as possible, and you don't want to stay out in this heat too long. A good sunscreen may be just as important as good bait right now. As far as artificial bait goes, the 4-inch Bass Assassin shrimp on a weighted jig head or a small J hook rigged with a split shot and tipped with fish bites has been a good choice. Picture of a nice red here today.
All right, nice. Looking good there, dude. All right, let's go offshore.
Moving offshore, as amberjack season runs into its second month, we're getting awesome reports and pictures of really nice fish. The live hardtails have continued to be an amberjack favorite. The live bait triggers a really aggressive bite. You can use dead bait, but you might spend the entire day grinding for these fish. Rock piles of structure in the 50 to 80 mile range will be your target area. Look for the larger, longer marks on your GARMIN machine. If you see these marks and they're suspended about halfway to the bottom, this should be a great place to start dropping some baits. And here's a picture today of a limit of amberjack.
Man.
Moving
right.
Yes, sir. Moving over to a vermilion snapper, which is something we target after snapper season, is another great tasting fish. Vermilion, sometimes locating these fish at upper coast can be really hard. Your best bet for nailing down some great spots for these fish is to start in the 125 to 150 foot depth range, and bottom structure is a must, as always. You will see, most of the time where you find your red snapper, you will also find vermilion in that same area. While looking at your depth finder, these fish will appear as a small cloud most times, suspended above the bottom. And you can also locate these fish above a massive red snapper. Moving into rigging for these little guys, you'll want to downsize. Smaller hooks and leader material is a perfect start. And as you drift off these spots, you may also find small schools around the outside of the rock piles. Once you hook a few, make sure you mark the spots so you can stay on them. We have a picture of a pile of vermilion right here.
All right, man, Carl, thank you for all the good pictures and all the sponsor mentions. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the mirror lure hotspots from the Upper Coast region. Carl says that inshore, you're going to go trout fishing, throw a popping cork with live shrimp along the shoreline and the shell reefs. And then offshore, the amberjacks dropping live hardtails on rock piles, and bottom structure is going to work really, really well for those things. So, Taylor.
Here we are.
I have been waiting patiently to come back over to this part of the show, and I know
you've been waiting patiently?
You're gonna fill your belly.
Yes. So, Dave, would you like to try?
Yeah, I'm gonna get some. I don't need you to feed me.
I'm not going to.
I was hoping not. I hope
So
you
tell
were
me,
going to try that.
what exactly is in the salsa?
So the salsa has pineapple, avocado, tomato, a little bit of red onion, and a little bit of lime juice. Just something really fresh. I know we're a little bit out of summer now, but I love to bring back some summer flavors.
I love those wonton skins.
Oh yeah, the wontons.
It just changes it.
Absolutely.
Now, do you substitute the pineapple sometimes with mango or something?
Oh yeah, you
Mango
can
would be
definitely make this your own. Definitely put whatever sauces, whatever salsas, put watermelon, peach, mango, really make it your own.
Yeah, I got it. We're going to make it our own, right, Dave?
Yeah, why not?
Sorry,
you want
Dustin over
something?
here looking at you. No, I'm okay. I'm just over here working. I just need to talk.
So we appreciate you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And guys, don't forget, you can catch up with Taylor on her Instagram as well as on Facebook, right, Brie?
Absolutely.
At Chef Taylor Sanders, and all these recipes will be on there.
Brie,
I'm
you
so
gotta
glad.
try.
I'm so glad she's back. We need to have her back more often. I'm gonna try. I'm just waiting. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
You guys remember
Get out there
when
on
she
the
was
water,
like
one
this
way or
one?
the
I do.
other.
And then braces after
Everyone's talking over
that.
me,
Now
so I'm
look.
just gonna eat.
Now look at her.
So
beautiful.
So good. See you next week. Bye.